This will be a quite short talk about a couple of ideas that came to our mind when we were doing the Q4 testing in 2021. So this is a quite new thing. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are, because that can be something that can contribute to the overall security posture of Android AVs altogether. Okay, so that's completely relevant. Nevertheless, so we've been doing these 360 Android site testing since 2018, and we've been using quite a number of ITW samples and simulators to put your applications to the test, basically. So as things stand, we see that there is a continuous improvement on many of our participant sites. So now it's a pretty common scenario to have like a perfect or near perfect score for many of the participants. So that's actually a great compliment to all to you guys, because you're doing your job pretty great. Nevertheless, with the recent change of the methodology, we thought that there might be a small area which can make a big difference when it comes to the overall user experience and the overall security posture provided by an AV app on an Android device. So this will be probably I'm pretty sure that most of you are already aware of that. So I'm pretty sure that in the basement your guys are already working on it. But nevertheless, we thought that it might be a good idea to just discuss this openly. So basically, when we talk about Android based AVs, we have pretty standard requirements. So basically, whenever the user is about to install a piece of malware, then the AV should intervene or should warn the user as soon as possible. And as a general guideline, the earlier the infection is detected, the better it is from the user's point of view. Nevertheless, on Android, AVs are not treated as special applications for the most part. So as things stand now, especially on older versions of Android, which still makes up the majority of the market out there, so AVs are treated as just another app. So in Windows, AVs have a pretty privileged position, so they can peek into other applications' memories. They can dump the process list and like monitor API calls and whatnot. So based on that, they can do a pretty decent decision regarding whether or not an application collects enough suspicious points to be killed for some reason. So as things stand, on Android, we don't really have this kind of insight into how the applications work on the OS. That's actually one side of the problems. So when it comes to detection mechanisms and user notification, um, to date, the only thing that a decent AV agent can do is to just point the user to the settings app on the Android OS, which can start the removal of an application. So that's not something that the AV itself can do. It just asks the OS to do it for it. But the problem here is that once an actual sample has been started on a particular device, then it's usually game over, especially, again, on older devices like Android Oreo, which is the 8.0. It's quite old, but still, many of the devices out there are still running 8.0. So there are these very widespread misuses or abuses of common Android features, like device administrating screens or device admin applications, also accessibility admin API. That's another API which is being very widely abused. And especially when it comes to malware, which is designed to survive reboots, and most of the samples we test out there, they are pretty decent in this way. So they do everything they can in order to provide kind of a longevity for themselves, even if the device is rebooted. And as things stand, there is a crucial point when the user starts the application for the first time. And up until that point, the situation is not great, but not terrible either. So the thing is that even if the sample has been installed and the user is born before the actual first start of the app, first launch, then it's okay, because on Android, up until the point when your application is started for the first time, no services can be executed. So that's actually something that is a very important point to make. Nevertheless, when the user has already started the app, there are lots of tricks a piece of malware can pull off to provide kind of access for itself into the OS itself. So, for instance, active device admin and activate accessibility screens are pretty widely abused. So, once we get to the point that the application has a chance to invoke these kind of functionalities, then it's usually really hard to do anything about that. So, we saw that there is a kind of let's see the timing aspect of things. So now we said that once the application, was the piece of malware is running, then it's basically game over. So all sorts of badness can happen to the user, and apparently the user got the actual malware sample from somewhere. So let's zoom in into what happens in between these 2 points. So apparently the user downloads the APK, whether or not it takes place through a browser or through some other means, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that the app needs to be downloaded. Also, there's an installation phase where the user, especially on later versions of Android, they have to actually turn off a lot of safeguard and security features, like the Play Store, like they have to manually enable manual installation of third-party applications originated from wherever. So there's quite a lot of things the user have to do, but nevertheless, they eventually navigate to the point when the app is being installed. Now, after the installation has finished, there will be some time until the malware will be started for the first time. And when we consider the user actions within this very basic process, we see that the user has to visit the source. They have to start the download. Those are deliberate actions on their side. Also, they have to initiate the install and start the application once the entire installation process has finished. Let's take a look at this flow from an AV perspective. Now, we know that if we get to this point, there is not much we can do, so all hope is lost. Nevertheless, the majority of vendors, majority of AVs in our tests, they put basically the focus on this place when the installation is finished, but the actual application has not yet started. So there is a kind of detection based of new package notification kind of thing. That's why I adopt this behavior. So now we apparently have a couple of potential problems. So apparently there is a timing situation. So if the user starts the malware before our AV has a chance to like do the cloud-based detection thingy, receive the answer, parse the answer, whatnot. So we may or may not be able to detect that this application that has just been installed is a piece of malware. So apparently there is a timing issue. Apparently, nevertheless, every single AV engine which we test, that's something where it's really focusing on heavily. So that's actually pretty good, despite all the hindrances. Nevertheless, many AVs actually put a lot of effort into trying to filter the entire process right at the beginning. So whenever we try to visit a website with a not trustworthy reputation, then there might be just a warning that, hey, we probably don't want to let the browser, let the user to browse this website because it's known to like spread malware or something. Now, apparently that's prone to a lot of false positives, apparently. So that might be something to consider based on the previous talk. Nevertheless, so these are the two crucial points where most AVs put a lot of emphasis on. But there are two other aspects which, as we see that lately, many vendors are actually actively taking a look at. So these are these guys here. So whenever the APK is being downloaded, many applications actually try to detect the malware as soon as it starts downloading. So that's actually one of the key things we found, that many vendors actually try to detect malware as it's being downloaded. Apparently, once the actual file is downloaded, so the entire APK is ready, so there are ways to submit a signature to the cloud versions of the app and to see what the backend has to say about that. So when we did the Q4 test, we changed the methodology to reflect this kind of small differences between vendors or AV products which score like a perfect or near perfect score. So there are still bits and pieces of difference in terms of how they approach the detection problem. And as it stands now, as we said earlier, the earlier we catch a piece of malware on an Android device, the better we are. So if we had a chance to catch the download before the actual application is downloaded completely, then it will be the perfect scenario to intervene, because we have a relatively long time until the actual download process goes through. And through that, until the point that the app is downloaded, it cannot be installed. So we can have like a longer time to detect what's going on, and we don't have this kind of timing issue that we don't have this risk condition between whether or not the user starts the actual malware before we have a chance to display our warning. And there are a couple of ideas here. So as I see, many of our test participants, they are trying to shift the focus to this side of things, so to catch the download as early as possible. And basically this can be done from a technical perspective, so that's not a problematic thing to do, because basically most of the time when an application is being downloaded, it takes place in a sequential way. So APK files are basically zip files, and traditionally zips have like a central file repository descriptor object at the end of the file. Nevertheless, if anyone who had to fix a broken zip file can surely tell you that even though there is the only a fraction of the file present at the file system at any given point, there is a lot of files that can be like at least partially extracted from that archive. So that's actually pretty cool. So I made a couple of little tests to highlight this point. So as we see that we have an APK file, and even if we just take the first 5K of the file, it's like a 12 megs of file size. So even if we take only the header, which is downloaded quite quickly, we have a chance to extract the manifest XML, or usually the small files are that depends actually on the archiver, how it works, how it prioritizes files. Nevertheless, in many cases, we saw that these small files are put to the beginning of the archive. So this means that in many cases, either the manifest XML or the signature object can be actually quite easily extracted. And this way, as long as the necessary information is within the AV's reach, it can make a decision, so it can like intervene mid the actual download. So that's actually what we propose. And I'm sure it's now that we say it, it's pretty trivial, to be honest. So I'm pretty sure that many of you have already started working on it, or you've already implemented it, depending on the product and your timeline. Nonetheless, I think that this is a great way forward. So this could be like the next step in terms of how the ABs work. And as we see that many of the our test participants, they're still relying heavily on the detection after the application has been installed kind of approach. Yet we think that this can be like a great step forward, because once we have like a near perfect rate, there's not much more we can do in terms of improving the detection rate. So what we can do, however, is to make the detection as early as possible. So actually, as I created a quick summary of what we saw. So we have 6 vendors out of the 9 who scored like perfect or near perfect scores. And as it turned out that there is a significant distribution of how vendors approach different things. I don't want to mention actual products or names. If you're interested, just take a look at the PDF on our website. Nevertheless, I think that the more earlier the samples are caught, the better our users are. So thank you